In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be discussing the European Super League. We'll be previewing the matches against Spezia and Hellas. We'll be reviewing the Napoli game. We have Serie A commentator David Ferrini with us. This week's Moji, Moratti and Frog, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com. Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima, Tavallaey, wishing you to a week that is going to be very decisive for Inter's chase in the Scudetto after the draw against Napoli. But before we get to all of that, I'd like to introduce my panelists, starting with the SempreInter.com preview writer, Mr. Mohamed Nassar. How you doing, Mo?
Hola, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? How's everyone? Looking forward to getting into this podcast.
Yeah, we do have quite a lot to go through, and we're also joined by our very good friend in Milan. He's part of the Inter supporters on Twitch. It's an Italian. They do shows in Italian. I also recommend you check it out if you speak Italian. Welcome back, Mr. Fulvio Santucci.
Hi, Nima. Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here, especially in this day where the football changed.
Yes, we will get into that. And we're also joined by our good friend, the chief news editor over on SempreInter.com, Mr. William Beckman.
Hello. I didn't really. I mean, I knew the stakes were high for this Serie A title bid, but I didn't know they were quite this high. This is actually our last chance to win it. We might not be in it next year. So
come on.
Being facetious. But yes, it's been a very strange day. So let's
been a very strange 24 hours. It has been an absolutely weird 24 hours. But before we get to all of that, let me introduce our guest. He is a Serie A commentator for the World Feed, making his Studio Inter debut. Welcome, Mr. David Ferrini.
Thanks. Hi, guys. It's good to be in the company of at least tifosi that are supporting the winning team for a change. So thanks, and glad to be making my debut.
Well, we're very happy to have you. Let's start there. I want to hear your thoughts and pick your brain a little bit about Inter so far this season, because it's been quite the roller coaster. Not just the world as a whole has been a roller coaster for everyone and everything, but Inter have also in their microcosm had quite the roller coaster season. It started off really badly, and then it just completely turned. In your opinion, what do you think is the main reason behind this incredible turnaround that has led Inter to being 9 points clear with only 7 games left?
Look, it's a multivariate analysis. I think we could be here all night if we really wanted to go into the depth of it. But Inter, in the second half of the season especially, has been incredible. They've lost 2 matches this season. One was against Milan and the other one was against Sampdoria, I believe. And, 9-point advantage at this stage of the season. Inter's been building this turnaround. If you look at the players, the player roster they had in 2018-19 compared to what they've got now, Antonio Conte, in my opinion, has done a good job with the mental aspect of the game. He's been able to bring through some young players. People need to realize Lautaro Martinez is 23, 24 years old. A couple of years ago when he was 21, 22, he was still young. Icardi was around. There was a little bit of a disorganized feel to what Inter were doing. But, Spalletti probably didn't have what Conte has at his disposal. And in the second half of the season, it's really come through. And also Milan lost confidence, as has Juventus has been up against it. There's so many variables that we could talk about, but definitely Inter, the strength mentally, what they've been able to do on the park. It's a translation of what they do in training and what Conte has brought to the club. I know there's a lot of Conte detractors out there, but this season they've been great. So great to watch and professional, just like they were last night against Napoli.
Yeah, hi, David. Thank you very much for coming on. I wanted to ask you, we've been talking about the Inter winning machine, but the last 3 matches or so, Inter might have seemed a bit labored. I think the performance against Napoli was fantastic overall. I would have definitely taken the 1 point, especially having gone down ridiculously in the first half. But do you think that there are signs that maybe the wheels are coming off in terms of fatigue for Inter? Is the end going to be as easy as the 9 point gap would have one think at this point in time, or do you think that we might be in for a bit of suspense towards the last 2 or 3 games of the season? I mean, I know surely you don't have a crystal ball or anything, but just your thoughts on how in what sort of mode the season might end, in your opinion.
Look, Inter 9 points ahead. I'll always say it's not over till the fat signora will sing, but I think that with 9 points and the run home that they've got, especially the coming games against Spezia and Verona, Crotone, also an out-of-form Roma, probably the toughest games they have in the last 2, and by then they'll probably have the title wrapped up. I think Conte's used something like 22 players this season, if my memory serves me well, which it hasn't been lately, so sorry if I got that wrong, but it's a run that is very doable. When you look at Milan in second place, they've got 5 very tough games. They've got Sassuolo and Lazio next. They've got Benevento that are scrapping for survival. Juventus away, Torino away, and then Cagliari, who in the second last round, they're probably going to be throwing everything at Milan, and Atalanta in the last game. I can't see Milan really causing too much bother for Inter, and as for Atalanta, they're too far away. But it's never over till it's over. I've seen Inter have those periods in the last couple of seasons where they've dropped 3 or 4 games in a row. I can't see it happening. They're too mentally strong now, and they're full of confidence. And going to the Maradona last night and taking on a Napoli side that were frothing, they were chomping at the bit to win that game. It was an arm wrestle, and that performance last night sort of reflected what Inter are all about. They're going to grind out the results, and Conte has a pretty decent list. The play, he only made 3 substitutions last night, and that's probably looking ahead to the game midweek. He's might rotate the squad against Spezia. I called the Spezia game yesterday. They weren't anything to brag about. Bologna had their way with them. Spezia play a high line. I can see, if Lukaku starts against Spezia, I can just see them running straight through them, just like Svanberg and Schouten and Musa Barrow did yesterday. I can't see a problem for Inter on the way home to the middle of May at all.
Thank you for that. Good to hear this perspective.
Well, right. Glad to bring the. I don't want to say what you want to hear, but so I think Inter fans are going to have a fairly relaxed April, and it should be fairly happy in May. Come time to go out to the Piazza Duomo here in Milan. So I might be there myself. I'm not an Inter supporter. I'm usually going for the underdogs, but Inter stopping Juventus this season, I'm all for it. I think it needs to be a little bit of change. Too much continuity is not a great thing, and Inter, denying Juventus double digits would be probably good for the overall mentality and psyche of most fans out there. So, yeah.
And also, sure. I think Interisti paid well in advance in terms of frayed nerves with those Empoli and Lazio season enders with Spalletti. I think we're due some coasting.
So I didn't get that. Can you please?
I'm saying Interisti have paid well in advance with those nail-biting season enders against Empoli and Lazio with Spalletti to get back into the Champions League. So I think we're due some coasting towards the finish line. We're owed this by the fates, maybe.
Sure. Well, if you're going to all the prayers of the past years have all been summed into one. So hopefully that'll come to fruition this year for Inter supporters. But their performance in the Champions League wasn't great this year. But I think if they can, well, it depends on the future of the game, to be honest, which is probably another topic you guys want to get into with the Super League. But I think moving forward to Champions, they're looking good, and the Inter fans definitely, all their prayers have been answered this season.
I'm going to pass you over to Will. Did you have a question for David?
Yes. Thanks for joining us, David, and thank you for giving us so much optimism there. From your mouth to God's ears, I would say. But going back to this game against Napoli that we saw on Sunday evening, I wanted to ask your opinion on Samir Handanovic, because that was another talking point that kind of reared its head after that match. Again, a slightly, shall we say, unfortunate goal to concede in the first half, and it kind of got me wondering again about this goalkeeping situation, because he's been much more reliable in the second half of the season. I think in the last 2 or 3 months, I can't really remember any goals where he's been sort of majorly at fault. I suppose not least because we've hardly conceded any, but that in part has been thanks to his improved performances. And it sounds like Inter are kind of leaning towards continuing with him for next season, even if a goalkeeper is brought in, whoever it may be, because they think that he's got another year or so in him at 36. So I was just wondering, as if you were an Inter supporter, would you feel confident going into next season with Handanovic as the first choice keeper again? Because while you can say that he's improved and that he's kind of shown that he's not finished with his performances in the last couple of months, there's also the argument this is maybe a kind of last hurrah to get himself over the line and win a trophy, and that starting again with him next season might be a bit risky. Because personally, I don't, if you look at the performances recently, you wouldn't have much to criticise him for, but I still don't feel comfortable that this is a medium-term solution, as it were, because we've had lots of names that have been linked. Obviously, we don't know how much money Inter are going to have to actually sign a new goalkeeper of any particular level, but would you feel comfortable keeping Handanovic in those posts for another season?
Look, I share your sentiments in regards to the future regarding a goalkeeper for Inter at 36 years of age. Handanovic, obviously, he's not exactly on the way out. He definitely at the start of his winter of his career, but I think he's been fantastic this season. He's as valuable as someone like Lukaku. For every goal Lukaku can score, Handanovic is saving one at the other end. Most games I've seen of Inter's this year, Handanovic has been a game changer, and he can get his reactions have been great. The goal that they conceded last night against Napoli was, I can't remember the last time I saw something like that happen. I think it was something that happens very rarely. And to be honest, if I was an Inter supporter, I'd rather see Handanovic out there than Padelli or Radu or Stankovic, whoever else they've got. So I really like Samir Handanovic, and I think he saved Inter a lot of times, even this season, where some of the score lines were, your 1-0s, getting over the line, grinding out results. I would persevere with Handanovic and make him become the Buffon of Inter, have him as your second keeper as well, and of course look to the future at the same time. Maybe even do what a Napoli situation is with Ospina and Meret, where you have the rotation. I think next year Handanovic will still be fine, especially you need that experience going to Europe and challenging the big boys. He's been phenomenal for me this year, and he's my favorite Inter player. So I would definitely, maybe that sounds a little bit biased, that he's my favorite, but and definitely I'd pursue with him. But Handanovic has been great. Definitely though, look to the future. 36 years old. There's got to be another option that's going to come through. There's lots of good goalkeepers now. Italy's got another surplus of goalkeepers. Going back 5-6 years ago, there was a little bit of a drought with the quality, but I think there's some good ones coming through. You can even see, good keepers. Monty Bau's a great keeper. Aldero's fantastic. They do concede goals because of their team lineup. They're just going to concede goals, but also Italy has a league that I think is on par with the Bundesliga as the league for most goals scored in matches. So these other keepers are going to concede goals. But Handanovic, I think he's conceded 30 odd goals this season, not even. So I'd persevere. and a much better performance than what Szczesny had a couple of weeks ago when he had a couple of howlers come his way against Torino. So persevere with Handanovic for now, and then get a rotation sort of tactic happening, which is what Gattuso's been doing.
For sure. Fulvio, did you have a question for David?
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can, Fulvio.
Yes.
Okay, good. Hi, David.
Hi.
Okay, so I would like to ask you this. You mentioned the fact that Inter so far lost 2 games into this Serie A season, and in the game against Napoli, Inter first go down and keep the situation of being down for the first time since January. The last time happened at Olimpico against Roma. My question for you is, have you ever got the impression during this game that Inter could have actually lost this game? And I ask you this because I would like a neutral opinion, because my impression is that Inter would never have lost this game, even though the ridiculous own goal, even though they were down, even though they hit the post. So some kind of a very unlucky game. But I think the switch of this team this year is that they always keep the awareness to win the game, or at least to not lose the game. So have you ever got the impression during the game of Inter that would never ever in hurt have been lost this match?
From the kickoff, even though it was a slow kickoff, the first 15 minutes showed us how cautious football can be amongst heavyweights like Inter and Napoli. Napoli showed more initiative, but weren't really able to manufacture anything decisive in the final third. In the first half, Darmian had an early chance. Instead, he tried to cut it back for a teammate. Inter could have gone up 1-0 in that first half quite easily. They were looking dangerous around the half-hour mark. Brozovic had an effort, deflected onto the crossbar from the boot of Lukaku. That was a huge moment. And if that goal went in, I would probably expect Napoli to try and obviously chase the game. But Inter, and just the structure they have on the park, they're so good at the moment that there was, honestly, throughout the whole 90 minutes, even when they were behind, I was waiting for the equalizer to happen. So, the way that they kept Zielinski so quiet, that was a huge factor. And no other team this season has been able to do it. In that first reverse fixture earlier on in the season, when Napoli traveled to Milan, Napoli were the better team, even with 10 men. The mentality that has changed in this Inter side in the second half of the season, the belief they have, the game plan they have, they are deployed as troops and they go out there with purpose. The few times that Inter went forward, they looked purposeful and dangerous. Darmian kept Politano out of the game while also offering options in transition. These kind of things are what wins you a title, not just the game. And, there was some interesting coming togethers. Lautaro Martinez didn't back down from that Diego Dem incident. The intent and desperation was there for everyone to see. I like the way that Inter already knows their next move, whether it's a long ball or diagonal or whatever they're going to do. They just know their next move. And even with Napoli, they like to keep the ball, but sometimes you just think, it's headless chalk football with Napoli, especially against teams that are organized. And there's not too many out there at the moment, to be honest, in Serie A. Inter is one of the only ones. The goal was unlucky on Inter's part. As I said before, Handanovic, I haven't seen a goal like that for a long time. It was unlucky. A lucky bounce that sat for Insigne, the burst of pace and cutback. Handanovic into De Vrij. Those are usually what separates Inter from the trailing pack, are those errors that Inter haven't made this season. But, fortune favours the brave. They went after Napoli to get a goal back. The Eriksen free kick and the Martinez flick. Inter came out of their shell when Napoli scored that goal. And before that, they were kind of happy to sit and sort of wait and pounce at the right time. It felt like it was only a matter of time for Inter to get that equalizer. Barella was kept quiet, but Inter then looked through other avenues. I thought Brozovic was tremendous last night. So, Hakimi wasn't really in form. His touches were heavy. But Brozovic looked alert. He didn't fall for the Zielinski feint to shoot from outside the box, trying to switch it on to his right foot. The Barella chance as well. Good play from Lautaro. Phenomenal intervention from Meret to keep them down and go into the halftime with a lead. So the Eriksson goal was spectacular. And the way Conte said it after the match, the old Inter would have lost this, whereas this Inter kept their heads up and soldiered on.
Very well put. I couldn't agree with you more. Before we let you, we have to talk about the elephant of the room. I just want to, just kind of leave the floor open to you to give your thoughts on this whole Super League thing. What was your reaction when you heard of it, and what were your thoughts going forward?
Well, I think like most people, it was sort of put upon us in the last 24 hours, even commentating yesterday, speaking to other commentators and other people that work in football. It's something that is sort of a slap in the face for most people. Unless we know exactly what the beast is, we won't really know how to deal with it. I'm one of those people that are for the free market. So if it went ahead, I think the response would be a good indicator of if people are going to bother with it or not. I've been seeing reactions today all day on Twitter and random blogs and opinion polls. And it would be nice to go out in the streets while I'm here in Milan and talk to some people about that, because two of the Milanese teams are involved, and maybe get on the train to Torino. But I'm of the belief that if it goes ahead, people vote with their wallets, and those that don't want this to go ahead should just, vote with their wallets. Obviously, in the long term, it's going to have a short-term impact, rather, I think, more than a long-term. I think in the short term, it might take away from the game, Serie A in general, if they are banned. And of course, they're going to become more powerful with the extra cash coming in from, if they take it on the road to Asia, to America, to Australia, to South America, and play games at big money for a ticket, then of course, I don't know enough about it yet. I think maybe it's a play from some of the clubs that want to have the revenue for themselves instead of having a middleman such as UEFA. I'm not sure how they're going to structure it, but it's going to be interesting, very, very interesting in the coming weeks.
For sure. That's a very good point. Before we let you go, have you got something you want to plug, something coming on? And if people want to follow you on Twitter, the floor is yours.
Thanks, guys. It was great meeting you all. Great talking about Inter. Good luck for the rest of the season. And look, if people want to follow me on the internet, I'm on Twitter. Also, I've got a website, davidferrini.com. My Twitter handle is davidferrini_. And look, I'm sure you guys will have details on your social media plugs. So anyone that wants to hear me commentate, I'm doing Bologna Spezia and the Sassuolo Sampdoria game this week. So midweek and weekend action coming up, Serie A. And stay loyal to Serie A, guys. Don't worry if it's a breakaway, okay? We'll still be here in it together.
Yes,
so,
we will. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for coming on, David. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys. Good
Take care. Buona serata.
Buona serata a tutti. Ciao.
Ciao. Right, David Ferrini, thank you very much for coming on. Let's continue. I mean, we do have to talk about this because it has been dominating every single news cycle, not just in sports. But this is a little bit of the background story. On Sunday, the New York Times published a story saying that 15 clubs were going to leave the European Club Association and form their own Super League. And since then, we found the identity of those. We've understood that Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich and PSG are not going to join this, but the rest of them are. And among those are Milan, Juve, Inter, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona, and the big six in the UK in terms of branding and revenue and world presence in terms of brand and followers: Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, Man City, and Liverpool. So since then, everyone you've had to, and if you haven't lived under a rock, you would have noticed the complete meltdown that is ensued, and it's literally almost a nuclear warfare between UEFA on the one hand and these clubs on the other. I want to leave the floor open a little bit and hear what you guys think about this and where you all stand on this. But yes, I'm going to start with you, Fulvio, because I've seen you tweet a little bit about this, and I want you to I want to hear your thoughts on. I mean, is this the catastrophe that lots of people are painting it out to be, or is this just we're just down? This is just a logical end of a path that was started some 20, 30 years ago with the creation of the Premier League and the Champions League, etc. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I'll go for the second option you suggested. I mean, I think it was inevitable. I actually smell this right when the pandemic starts. So we're talking about basically 13 months ago. I mean, the rumor is on since a lot of time, but the pandemic actually accelerated all the process, and you just needed to take a look at the financial statements of the involved clubs to understand that that the football needs to be shaken up in order to resume the financial levels that in which the club operates prior to the COVID. I actually saw that coming, to be honest. So it was inevitable, but I think the ironic part is that actually UEFA has a responsibility on that, a huge responsibility. For me, the responsibility is to have developed, I don't know if incidentally or not, but they actually have developed a business model which was completely based on the elite. And when the financial fair play started, and just look at the at the statements of the clubs, at the income of the clubs, where the financial fair play started, and where they were after just 4 or 5 years. I mean, they created a huge, a very wide difference between some kind of clubs and some other, and the rest of the world, basically. So I think that UEFA created the base for this situation. Even though they're not admitting it today. So I saw that coming. So the deal, I think that the deal here is very simple for me to understand. And the deal is that the clubs now have the structure to organize their own tournament. I mean, we are not into the football of 20 years ago, where the clubs were basically a house building and a team into the field. We are not talking about that. We're talking about clubs that are committed in first person into the merchandising of his own stuff. We're talking about clubs that have their own television and they produce their own content. We're talking about clubs that are able to go into a negotiation about, for example, the TV rights. So I think that what went wrong here in the negotiation between these clubs and the UEFA was not about the amount of the income, which just for the record is way lower than the Super League, but about the handling and the power to handle this income. So basically, the clubs realized at some point that is my opinion, my thesis. Realized at some point that they could have go without an intermediate subject like the UEFA to negotiate their own tournament and handle their own incomes. And I think that's basically the deal. That's the reason, the deep reason behind this. Behind what is happening in these hours. I believe that there will be no comeback from this position. I strongly believe this, especially because you have a partner like JP Morgan, and you don't bother JP Morgan just to make some interference on the negotiation with UEFA or to bluff. I don't think so. And I strongly believe that it's not about the amount that UEFA could offer right now. I know that they're going to increase, but it's about the control of the finances. The clubs want to control their own finances. And this, I think, is related to the consequences of a financial fair play, which was made with the best intention, but at the end of the day, just create a lot of differences and a lot of classes between into and within the European football.
Fish, that's loads of great points. Mo, where are you on this?
Yeah, I have absolutely. Look, I don't know what the ESL is going to look like. I'm always a bit loath to support anything that is built around an American franchise model. But at the same time, I have absolutely zero sympathy for these rotten organizations who are claiming to be so sanctimonious today in the various domestic league associations or the UEFA or the FIFA. These guys have made their bed. It's been a long time coming. And honestly, when I look at the reforms for the Champions League that are meant to be coming into force in 2024 and expanded, like we don't want to see Inter play Ludogorets in the Champions League, let alone in the Europa League. So I do get the motivations behind it, and I also think that as a supporter of a team that really got shafted by FFP, I stand with Fulvio's point in the sense that these clubs are owed it's not an out of this world desire to be able to think that they need to be able to control their finances independently, so I don't know what the ESL will look like, if it will happen or not. I think maybe I'm a bit less let's say optimistic or I think it could be rolled back. It could all just be a bargaining maneuver, and it might well be rolled back. But what I really have to say, and I really dislike Agnelli, and I think elitism in football is counterintuitive, but this is all the 20 or 30 years of corrupt, rotten decisions by the governing bodies, the various associations. And this is what you get. You can't have an unsustainable football model where these clubs are hundreds of millions of euros in debt, all of them, all these top clubs, and the various associations keep and make the money. They dole it out in shady means. So I just, again, I'm all for the European Cup, the purity of football back in the day. I'm all for that. But to think that to romanticize the Champions League as it is today, or to think that the UEFA or the Premier League or the Serie A, Lega Calcio, whatever, are these protectors and guardians of true footballing values is also.
I can't even laugh with that. Like I can't even keep a straight face when I read FIFA and the Premier League and UEFA, Serie A putting out a statement talking about solidarity. It's just
it's different. And so it is. Like I said, they made their. So again, I don't know what's going to come out of the ESL. If it does eventually become the prime European competition, I'm going to watch it and support and be happy. We've all got very short memories, and things become what they become. But that aside, I think the response by UEFA, that statement sent out today, the enough is enough, is so tone deaf and so. It really feels like I don't want to get too deep into politics, but when you have a rotten totalitarian regime and the people rise up against regime, and then they make these very fake moves to try and appease the population, but they're completely deaf and they get it. I don't think UEFA still get it. I think the core issue is Barcelona, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, everyone bar maybe a couple of those Premier League teams are extremely they're under extreme financial duress because of the events of the last year or so, and any team that had been on a project that might have had a light at the end of its tunnel is now suffering greatly, like Inter, like Milan, like whatever, the teams that are being governed quite responsibly and with a solid direction towards financial positivity and financial liberation from debt. So to really ignore that, to really ignore the core issue, it's no good. And I don't think anybody should be shocked. And it is what it is.
Will, what about you? Where are you on this?
More or less in the same place. I mean, it was clearly inevitable. In sort of real terms, it's not hugely different in a footballing sense to what we've already had for the last 10 years. If you look at the teams that reached the last 8 of the Champions League or the last 16, they're always the teams that have got the highest turnover. They're always the same teams. So the space for surprises to happen is getting smaller and smaller. All this is doing really is kind of crystallizing it and giving those clubs control of what they're doing for the first time, which makes sense given that they're the prime actors. I think it is definitely about governance, as Fulvio said. UEFA have kind of become irrelevant, or that these clubs have realized that they can make UEFA irrelevant, and so there's no real reason to hang around with them anymore, because fundamentally, UEFA have made a lot of noise today. We've had some very amusing comments from Alexander Cheferin calling Andrea Agnelli a liar and saying Ed
and a
Woodward
snake. My favorite was the snake.
The snake was a more general comment about how there are snakes around us. But Agnelli was directly accused of having lied repeatedly. They announced these champions.
Andrea Agnelli lying? William Beckman, whatever are you saying? My monocle just dropped.
I'm just the messenger here. But he was saying that he'd been speaking to these owners just a few days ago about the Champions League reforms, and Ed Woodward and all these owners had said, yeah, we really like these reforms, that's great, go on and announce them, and then they managed to drop this bomb on them before it came out. So I do agree that there's a part of me that is enjoying watching UEFA kind of take the moral high ground that they abandoned several years ago. But
decades ago.
Yeah. Look, it's not entirely palatable. I'm not surprised here that it's getting a much more strong reaction in a negative sense here in England than it is in Italy and Spain. There has been a discrepancy I don't know about Spain, but obviously England and Italy have been both across. So I'm not surprised there's such a discrepancy between the way that this has been welcomed. Gary Neville almost had a meltdown live on television.
Very amusingly on Sky Sport,
the
I might
Manchester
add.
United match.
On Sky Sport, I might add.
There's all sorts of layers of hypocrisy that are going on here. Look, I think I would say that I'm resigned to it. I think that's probably the best way to say it. I don't love the American model in football. I've never really been across American sports in general. Perhaps there's just some kind of cultural gap that I don't quite understand. I don't like the fact that there's no relegation. That to me seems someone who's grown up with have that always having been a key part of football. I don't like that, but ultimately I will watch it. I don't hate it enough to walk away. So I can't be too hypocritical. And the argument that they've put forward is also about saving the rest of the clubs in the world, about because this is this sort of necessary act to change the model that football is running on. So obviously that's an impossible sell at the moment, because nobody likes the fact that the sort of the competitive nature of the sport is being ruined in a sense. But the model we've got at the moment is clearly not sustainable, especially not with the pandemic that we've had. So it was going to come, and I also understand why Inter felt obliged to sign up to that. Obviously it's divided opinion among our fans, but ultimately if the train is leaving the station, you kind of have to jump on it. So I will swallow it, and I'll watch whoever we're playing in a midweek. It's not perfect, but I'll get on with it.
Thing is with me, for me, I just got to add to that just 1 second before I hand over to you, Fulvio. Look, for me, the situation is very simple. This is the logical conclusion of a journey that we've been on in football for about 40 years, 30 years, okay? And there were lots of people saying that this is exactly where we're going to end. And lots of people were laughed at and called alarmists, and they were this, that, and the other. Well, I guess they were right all along. Look, the time to protest the creation of Frankenstein's monster is not when the monster is moonwalking down the avenue. You do the protesting when the body parts are being collected and the contraption to bring life to the monster is being built. When everyone is telling you, no, don't be paranoid. We're just doing research. This is for the good of everyone. Okay, you bought that nonsense because it was convenient and psychologically felt good because it was your club could buy more, got more money and could buy more players, and it was good for you. Look, and De Laurentiis wanted to do exactly this with the Serie A. Okay, the Lotito was whinging about Carpi a few years ago, getting promoted to the Serie A on this very same issue. This has been a long time coming, and Andrea Agnelli. I mean, you talk about telegraphing your punches. Last year, pretty much exactly a year ago, he sat in a televised event in London, organized by the Financial Times, I think. Or some other organization, an economic summit, talking about how Atalanta didn't deserve to be in the Champions League because the only reason they made it to the Champions League group stage is because they were they're based in Italy and blah blah blah. And look, this is not something new. This has been coming a long time, and everyone who said this is coming was laughed at, and it was said, you're alarmist, you're this, that, and the other. Well, the chickens have come to roost. And I cannot care, because I got to be honest with you. I don't care one way or the other. I'm going to be completely honest. I could not care less if they go through with it. I could not care less if they don't go through with it, because I know that at the end of the day, we're all headed in this direction anyway. Franz Beckenbauer and Karl-Heinz Rummenigge have been speaking about, and Uli Hoeneß have been speaking about a Super League for 30 years. So every sign has been there. Some people have chosen to not look at it. Others have chosen to see where we're going and say, maybe we should change direction altogether because this is where we're going. And everyone was drank the Kool-Aid and thought this was all great. The Champions League is literally based. This is just a natural continuation of that. So I can't take this seriously. I really can't take this criticism seriously. And I got to be honest with you, as far as the Serie A is concerned, well, I think in the short run, because I think you have to look at things a little bit differently. I think in the short term, this won't have any impact on the Serie A whatsoever, because the Serie A cannot exist without Inter, Juve, and Milan. It's as simple as that. And the clubs know this. Just like La Liga and the Premier League can't exist without them. They won't be able to exclude them. They can try, but they will fail, and this will go into the courts, and they will lose. As for the long term of this, yes, I do think the domestic leagues are under threat, because this Super League is going to swell. This isn't going to stop at 15 teams and then 5 are invited. It's going to swell because that's the nature of the beast. It wants to grow. It wants to become bigger. It wants to make more money. And eventually this is going to hurt the domestic leagues for sure. But I think it becomes a little bit the lack of self-awareness and as Mo was talking about, the sanctimony of UEFA talking about solidarity. It just I and FIFA as well. Come on, guys, how can you say that with a straight face? Because the amount of corruption and backroom deals that these people have been making to enrich themselves, not just when they were caught. I'm talking about it's been going on for a century now. So it is what it is. Wolves will, this is you've made your bed, now lie in it. That's my attitude to this. What will happen from now on, God knows. Who knows? I think it's quite clear based on the fact that Fulvio alluded to that JP Morgan are involved, that they are involved for 23 years, that they have guaranteed money, that they've guaranteed a sum in the region of 4 billion euros to give to these clubs at an interest rate of 2-3% over that period of time, because they see huge potential earning here. All of that stuff, this wasn't something they thought of 5 minutes ago. This has been growing, this has been coming for a long time, and now it's here. And I don't think it's going away. And we'll just have to wait and see. Fulvio, what did you want to say?
Yeah, Nima, I would like to add something that's probably worth in this, could be beneficial in this discussion, because we heard a lot of opinions throughout the day since the bomb exploded, let me say this. But what I did not hear was the opinion of the youngest people. No young people have been inquired about that, right? Just adult people. And I think this is valuable in this discussion, because we are talking about a lot of stories, a lot of good stories about the past, about the spirit, about the fairy tales. But if we put in the shoes of a young boy, I mean, 20 years old, all he experienced so far in European football is basically the same team along and winning again and again and again. I mean, Real Madrid in Champions League, Juventus in Serie A, Barcelona in the Spanish Liga, and this is all they know. And I mean, it's likely that at some point they get bored about this stuff and start watching just the tricks. I mean, the Messi ones, the Ronaldo ones, and it's probably what the football means to them. If you think about an investment like this, it could pay off in a decade at least. And I think that the youngest people on the planet are the target of this product, of this tournament. And this is what Agnelli thinks. And Agnelli said also a thing that is very valuable to say, is that the Champions League TV rights currently are available for 1.5 billion. And the ratio is that the passionate of football throughout the world are estimated in 1.6 billion. Well, the NFL rights, the National Football League, American National Football League, has estimated 150 million of passionate around the world, but the TV rights worth $7 billion. So that is something that needs to be evaluated, and that is something that is probably our targets also especially the youngest people, because we probably live in a bubble where we experience the football so far. This a lot of fairy tales, this Atalanta stuff, this Leicester stuff. And back in the days, Nottingham Forest, the Aston Villa, and stories like that. But I mean, the football of the future is the football of the present, to be honest, not the future, seems to be a lot different. I personally know people younger than me that are more interesting in the fantasy football instead of football. Or at least, let me say, they watching football just because they play fantasy football. Otherwise, they're not interested in that. And this is something that is valuable. It's something that is beneficial to say in a discussion like this. I mean, we cannot rely just the impression of the people that actually went throughout a lot of changes in the football, and they approach the football with the spirit of the younger age.
Yeah. Very good point. Very good point. I just quickly, what do we think? Like, I mean, I know it's a big issue to digest, but what do we think is going to happen at the end of the day? Like, do you think, like, Inter? Because I mean, I saw something about some Juve fans were hoping that lovely Inter, Juve, and Milan all get kicked out, so the Scudettos, so Inter's are going to be stripped of the Scudetto. Well, the Italian FA, if I'm not mistaken, Fulvio, I saw today that they literally said that no, it's not going to be retroactive. It's going to be because when the Super League is founded, it'll be in the future, and they can't punish Inter for doing something that doesn't exist yet. So Inter are not going to lose the Scudetto this year. But I mean, what do we think is going to happen in the immediate future? Do you think that all three clubs will be expelled, Fulvio, from the Serie A?
Well, if you ask me, I have one of my special later for you, Nima, about Serie A, but I spare you for the Moggi part of the show. To be honest, I have one of my special for you and for everyone. Yeah, but I just think that we need to be realistic here. Juventus, Inter, and Milan just make the 80% of the Serie A product. 80% of the Serie A product. I think that actually Serie A could not afford to lose one of these players. Just figure the situation in which they lose all of these three players. I mean, last night I was joking about that because the first rumor went out, the situation went crazy, there was a complete meltdown. And somebody just wrote me and say, "Hey, I'm worried about our Scudetto. Do kicked out these three clubs from the Serie A. What do you think about that? And I just for a joke, but not so much of a joke, I just reply, if Serie A kicked out these three clubs, and these three clubs will not come back, I mean, the next Serie A could be just a horse racing hosted by Lotito, and will be the same. They don't have the possibilities. They cannot afford the possibility, and this is actually a responsibility of the Serie A. The Serie A just rely on these three clubs, especially in these three clubs, for years and years. And I mean, I will explain you later about that. But they just don't invest a penny, a money, a cent, anything on their structure, and that's why they cannot afford to lose. I mean, the Serie A is an organization, is a governance that it's so easy to blackmail in each way you want, and we saw that especially during the beginning of the pandemic. How can you think that they are in a position in which they can threaten the three most valuable assets that they had right now? I mean, it's completely unrealistic.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. Right, let's move on to the Napoli game. I just want to quickly talk about that because it was. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I was very calm throughout this game, and it just felt like this was going to end in a draw, and the Inter were in control, even though they didn't have a lot of possession of the ball. They didn't have a lot of. They didn't have a lot of possession, but every time they created, they felt more dangerous than Napoli. It was a controlled performance. But you have to say Napoli were good as well. Just quickly, is it? I mean, that's it, right? I mean, we've said it's been over for quite some time. Now we've got Spezia and Hellas that we're going to talk about quickly as well. But I mean, that's it, right? I mean, by the end of this week, Inter are going to, this or at latest next weekend, then Inter are champions, right?
I don't know when it's going to be won. I mean, I wouldn't rule out maybe it spilling over into the Roma game or possibly even the Juventus game, although I hope not. I agree that was a really big point against Napoli, because I think it kind of proved beyond all reasonable doubt that this team is really, really mentally strong now. I mean, David Ferrini mentioned it earlier in the show. The difference in sort of personality and confidence between this match and the reverse fixture was night and day. And even though we won that game, we didn't win this one. I agree with what Fulvio was saying earlier in the game, that earlier in the show, that there was never really a point where it looked like we were going to lose, or that the players were thinking that either. I think that was really important because, as we said earlier, this is the first time that we've been behind in a game since January. And I think if there was going to be a chink in the armour that was going to be exposed in this run, and if there was going to be a moment where these players kind of woke up to the magnitude of what they were doing and start to get a little nervous, because let's remember, pretty much all of them haven't won a trophy before, or in a major trophy, bar sort of two or three players. It was going to be then, and the response was encouraging. So yes, I think that there is virtually no coherent argument to suggest that this is going to go wrong now, not least because we only need 12 points if Milan win all of their games left, and we've just heard Milan's fixtures. I can't see a scenario where they finish on 87 points. So yeah, I don't know if we're going to win all four of these next games that are on that are on paper are winnable, but sort of thinking more generally, I would be stunned if this was to go wrong now, because this team is just rock solid. It's playing in Conte's image. He's developed them into this machine that it seems capable of facing anything that's thrown at it, like an unfortunate own goal, like hitting the post twice in the first half. So no, in short, I agree with you, and that's great. So like I said, the one sort of question I had left was, what happens if we lose at Napoli, and what happens if we go behind, because we haven't had that for a while, and we passed both of those tests. So yeah, I mean, mathematically we could be champions the next time we're recording. I don't think that's going to happen, but no. Because if we win both our games and Milan lose both their games, we're champions on Sunday. But I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, Sampdoria probably is the one I'm looking at.
No, that's good. I'd say Sampdoria as well, because I think Inter will win against Spezia and Hellas. But yeah, just quickly touch on the Napoli game. Mo, I want to hear your thoughts on that. Just quickly.
Yeah, it was a really good game. I thought it was a lot of fun, and like you, I think the game was never in doubt. I thought at least a point. I thought maybe push for 3, but then when Gagliardini came on, it was clear that Conte was there to just preserve the single point. And Conte, I trust. If he thinks that 1 point is good enough, then he's done his maths, and I'm sure he knows what he's doing much more than I do. So yeah, no, I think it, clearly objective achieved. I think a lot of players seemed a bit out of sorts. Barella, Hakimi, even Eriksen clearly weren't at the top of their game, and yet we were able to walk away from the Maradona Stadium with a point, undefeated. So I think it says a lot. And like Will said, the team is playing in Conte's image now. Confidence is really up. I think, like you guys, I think it's difficult to foresee a scenario where it all goes proper pear-shaped. But yeah, let's hope 6 points over the next 2 games, and hopefully will be. I mean, since it's Ramadan, it'll be halal champagne that will be cracking open.
That sounds great. Fulvio, what about you? What do you think by Sampdoria game will be done by then, or do you think it will be next time we record next Monday?
Yes, I think that it might be between Crotone game and Sampdoria game. Sampdoria game, by the way, is a Wednesday game, if I'm not mistaken. So it's I would prefer to achieve this goal into a weekend, to be honest. So I hope the guys would achieve the same, will have the same thought and achieve this. But all jokes apart, I mean, between the Crotone game and Sampdoria game, I think this could be done.
Absolutely.
The Sampdoria game is a Sunday. It's not a midweek. I've just checked. It's the Roma
game.
Really?
Really? So probably I mixed up the two. So Sampdoria is fine for me. Sampdoria is completely fine for me.
That's brilliant. Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's talk about Spezia and Hellas. Hellas, I mean, basically it feels like their season is over, and it's been over for quite some time. They're in a bit of a dreadful form. But before that, it's Spezia. And Spezia are, I mean, if I'm looking at the table, they have 32 points. They've all but secured, Serie A football next season, which I think, after what Antonio Conte's Inter has done, is the single most impressive feat by any football, by any Italian football team, and I think football coach in a very long time. What Vincenzo Italiano has done with his Spezia, playing a very modern, expansive football with a very young squad, and getting that and getting them to do that at this level and delivering the results is incredibly impressive. 41 goals scored, 8 wins, 8 draws, 59 goals conceded. I mean, I'm really impressed by Spezia, and I wonder what kind of Inter we'll see. Will we continue to see an Inter that we saw against Sassuolo, or a light version of that, or what are we expecting here, Fulvio? What do you think?
Well, yes, it's. I think it will be a tough game, especially because I mean, Spezia is probably the story of the season in Serie A. For the low table, and because they actually put this team together in just 1 month, completely new, and they show really the ideas and the pragmatic ideas, but also funny. Also entertaining to watch by the coach Vincenzo Italiano. I'm a big fan of this. I think it's a revelation. But on the other side, I don't know. I mean, Spezia is not in the best position, but not in the worst as well. 7 points from the relegation zone, and 7 points is not so comfortable to climb up when you are in that position. It's likely that Spezia probably would not seek against Inter the points they need to secure the relegation. They have a schedule, a fixture against the Genoa, against the Verona, against Sampdoria, all teams that basically just finished their championship. Probably Genoa is in the same situation, 32 points. But once again, I think that Inter is prepared to beat every kind of opponents. Especially, and I said it especially because I was impressed by Napoli. I mean, probably Napoli was the best opponent that we faced into the second part of the season. I don't know if you agree with me, but for me, they have a really good game. I mean, I think we can do that, but I think that also we need to also remember that now the points are really important. The points have a specific weight that is a lot now, because every point now could wrap up the Scudetto mission. So I completely rely on Conte. I completely trust the team because it's rock solid, as Mo was saying, and I think we can finish this week with 6 points in the pocket, and that would be the final points probably. And after that, we just need to choose the day in which we are more comfortable to seal the deal. I see like that, probably optimistic and positive, but that's basically what Inter actually has showed to me in these last months, and I don't see any reason because the magic could be interrupted at only a couple of steps from the goal.
For sure. Do you have a prediction for that game? For me, I think it's going to be a 3-1 win Inter Lukaku brace. What about you?
Yeah, I will probably go with the same. It's probably the we concede, but it's likely that we will score a lot. I would go with Lukaku as well. He's a specialist of this kind of team, like 4 goals against Benevento, for example, and Spezia scored at the first leg as well. So yes, I would go with Lukaku as well. Probably the brace from Lautaro.
Nice one. Will, what about you?
I think we'll win. I don't think it'll be straightforward. I think this, of the 2 games we've got this week, I think this one's probably the harder one. One because, as you said, Spezia have still got a little bit more to play for than Hellas, and also because it comes not too long after this game at Napoli, so it's possible that there might be a bit of a fatigue in the legs. But I do think we'll win. I think it'll be 2-1, and I hope that Lukaku and Lautaro will get 1 each. And then I'll give a nice goal to Giulio Maggiore because he's an Inter fan and he helped Spezia, which was decisive back in February. So
yes, I remember that.
The referee is the same game as for the Spezia.
Yeah,
Milan
Kifi,
game. I hope
isn't
that's
it?
That's not an omen, but yeah.
I hate that guy.
Kifi.
Yeah, it was the one that didn't award the penalty to Perisic when we lose against Parma.
Parma, I was going to say. Yeah,
centuries ago. I mean, probably 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm not a big fan of Kifi as well because he feels that everyone else can be looking at one thing, but Kifi sees something else, and I don't like that feeling. He gives me those kind of Rosario Abisso vibes, which I don't like at all. What about you, Mo? What's your prediction on the Spezia game?
Yeah, I'm more inclined to side with Will on this one than you and Fulvio. I think it's going to be a tough game, but I think it's 3 points. And actually, I hope Hakimi gets a goal here. I think the boy needs a bit of a shot in the arm, the same way that Eriksen did over the weekend with Napoli. So I'd say Lukaku and Hakimi for the 2, and I don't know who's going to score for Spezia.
Cool. Well, I'm going to continue with you, Mo, because we have Hellas as well. And Hellas with Di Marco, a player I absolutely love and who I absolutely think should be given a chance at Inter. There's been quite a bit of conflicting reports about him that Hellas Verona have an option to buy set at 6.5 million euros, but Inter have a buyback clause set at 10 million euros. There's been, and some say they haven't. So all I know is that whatever happens, given the great relationship that Hellas and Inter have, had before the last 24 hours, but they all jokes aside, they do have a good relationship because Eddie Salcedo's there as well. So this is a player that I hope Inter end up bringing back to the club because I think he's got a fantastic left foot and I think he's young and he also, I like having homegrown players, and I think that I would like to see what Antonio Conte can do with him with a full preseason. they have but other than that, I think Juric has done an excellent job. I think after Vincenzo Italiano, he's been my coach of the season after Conte and Italiano. I think he's done an absolutely phenomenal job, 2 seasons in a row with not much to work on. So I think there might be. I'm thinking, given that this is at the San Siro, I think it'll be a 1-0 win, a tight 1-0 win, but still controlled. What about you, Mo?
Yeah, actually, I think this game will be a bit more loose. I think Inter are due a dominant. After the potentially tough win against Spezia, they're due a dominant performance against a weaker side, let's say. So I think this will be the match where it's a nice 2 or 3-0 controlled, like you say, but actually with a lot of goals, and then we'll hopefully have Lula scoring the goals. So maybe a Lautaro brace and a Lukaku goal.
Right, Will. What about you?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I fear this game less than the Spezia game. I think if we win that game at La Spezia, I will be completely comfortable that the job is virtually done and that it's all just about sort of crossing the I's and dotting the T's, to the extent that I think if Conte is going to make a couple of changes here or there, having 3 games in a week, I'd probably make them in that game rather than the one on Wednesday against Spezia, although he's not going to make anything particularly surprising in terms of his team selections anyway. I think it will be maybe 3-1. I think if this has been, earlier in the season, then Hellas would have been a tough team to face, but, their season is pretty much done. And I think if we beat Spezia, then I don't see any potential for nerves against Hellas. So I will say 3-1. There we go.
Fulvione, what do you think?
3-0. 3-0.
Okay.
I think I probably won't be so comfortable like the results could suggest. I can probably figure it like 1-0 in the first half, and after that a lot of scoring chances that we won't convert as usual, and after that we still in the final part of the game, but I'm pretty sure we won't concede against Verona.
I hope you're right. Right, let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with a negativity. This week's Moggi, which will be presented by Mr. Fulvio Santucci.
Okay, so as I was saying, this is one of my special, and let me go back to the Super League topic, because I would like to let you know what the Serie A thinks about that. We already mentioned during the show that there was a communique that was shared with the other federation, but there was actually other reaction that it's good to record here. Because they're completely controversial, actually. So the first reaction on the Serie A was that the first official reaction that I heard about was from the federation president, from the Football Association president Gravina, and Gravina said that basically that this is a dead end. The Super League is a dead end, and solidarity contribution needs to be done, and the road is the road, the path in which we should go on is the one of the official Champions League organized by the UEFA, and once again point on the meritocracy and something like that, preserve the game and blah blah, so on and so forth. So this comes from the president of football, the Italian football. That actually made a lot of interesting stuff during the last years. Especially, I would like to mention the one when the Gravina said football. The slogan here, the tagline, the catchphrase is football football belongs to the supporters. He said. So the measure in which Italian football belongs to the supporter is this one. Actually, in Italy, the next year, you will need 3 TV accounts in order to see all the competition. right? And that's because they made a lot of mess into the TV rights, and as a result, you need to pay the three broadcaster to see two competition actually. So the amount actually is gigantic if you think that if you compare to the number of the games, and nothing has ever made for the supporters in the interest of the supporters. So free broadcaster, three different accounts to be open just for seeing two competition if you want to see everything. And this is just for Italian football. Then you have the broad football. And second is the Super Cup. Super Cup is a very interesting story because actually the Super Cup was transferred to the Saudi Arabia, which is a country that actually
next to Italy. It's just right next to Italy.
Exactly. You have a geographic distance, and you have a culture distance. And I don't need to remind
everyone knows that whenever you think of Italy, you automatically think Riyadh. Whenever Milan, Riyadh,
exactly.
Rome.
But you know what the fun. That's actually a very funny part because there was a deal for the Saudi Arabia to host 3 Super Cups, if I'm not mistaken. One was already made, and the other one is actually the other 2 actually stopped for the COVID. But the funny part of the story is that this deal has an earning of 22 million euro. But the funny part of this is that this deal actually pissed off the Qatarian. And pissed off the Qatarian because was not into the agreement that Serie A made when they sell the broad TV rights to the Qatar. And that, as a result, the Serie A lost to gain to 22 million from the Saudi Arabia. They lost a potential 300 millions from the Qatar. So this is the heart of the federation for their supporters. They take the football abroad, and they actually trigger a chain reaction in which they lose a lot of money in a football that is already losing a lot of money. So this is how the football belongs to the supporters. Then we had a lot of reaction, and I could say and mention here. I just would like to remember. I just would like to actually remind what Serie A did in order to preserve his incredibly meritocratic football. And I would like to mention that he actually consent all the kind of financial manipulating in all kinds of way that you can think about, especially with the fake plusvalenze. I don't know if you are familiar with these terms, but basically is what happened when a Juventus player or an Inter player as well, to be honest, from the Primavera, from the youngest, is suddenly valuable for like 20 or 30 million. And this is happening actually without any kind of control. Also, we can remember into the last year how the Milan deal went into the hands of a convicted Chinese without any kind of control, actually. And I would like also to remind...
Convicted what? Sorry, you said convicted Chinese what?
Yes, it was an entrepreneur, or at least an alleged entrepreneur. That's at some point it came out the news that he was convicted in China, but it was not clear because they say, in China they convict people for nothing, so it's nothing. But everybody pointed the fact that he could have had a bankruptcy in China, but the way was that AC Milan actually was on the edge of failure and was excluded from the European competition as well, as you remember. And before that, there was any kind of financial control for any governance, any Italian governance on that, just because they need to keep Milan into the loop.
Exactly.
So and the last thing that I want to say, because I can go ahead all night, but I don't want to do that, of course. But the last thing I would say is about the gentleman Enrico Preziosi, the Genoa president.
Oh, my favorite, the guy who owns a toy store.
So basically, he said that Marotta should step out from the Lega Serie A board, which is a good point. I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, I have nothing against that, but it comes from a guy that for the Italian football just collect fraud for bankruptcy at Como. What is called falso in bilancio in Italy. I don't know actually, but it's like a financial statement fraud, something like that.
Yeah, it's
also
a fraud. Yeah, basically lying about your revenue and stuff like that. Financial statement.
Yeah. And on top.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys. And on top of this cake, a sports fraud. When he was in Genoa, he basically bought one game just to be promoted from the Serie B to the Serie A. It was 2005. This guy is around. He was never actually convicted, probably fined, but never convicted. And he's around. And now he's just step up and just like a hero, and said, "Hey, shame on you, because you are ruining Italian football." And this comes from a guy that could just collect three different felony into Italian football. So that is basically the situation. Not to mention Cairo, that just said to Marotta that he was a traitor because I have an interference on the TV rights bid because of the Super League that he was organizing. But Cairo is also the president of Torino, but it's also basically the owner of the Gazzetta dello Sport, which is the most famous newspaper, sports newspaper in Italy. So the interference, the conflict is clear, and so these guys are actually talking about how we can save Italian football. So I don't know what else to add. I mean, that's an incredible.
There's really nothing much more to add than that. I mean, it's just that's what I mean.
So did you see that story that the Gazzetta dello Sport posted last week? It was an incredible scoop. It was one of Urbano Cairo's WhatsApp conversations about to Paolo D'Alpino.
Exactly.
They must have got that scoop.
I forgot about that. Actually, Gazzetta dello Sport just published a screenshot, a real screenshot of a WhatsApp conversation between Cairo and D'Alpino. And because D'Alpino was actually not trusted by a lot of people like Marotta, like Agnelli, and so on and so forth, and they actually published a screenshot and saying like one of these guys is going to betray you, which is a Bible citation. So basically, the hidden message is that Cairo is the god and is going to the direction in which he said D'Alpino that. One of you is going to betray you, so very biblical. So this is the guy that actually wants to save the Italian football.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's probably Frog, actually, not Moggi. Probably was Frog of the week, not Moggi, but still, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it is pretty deplorable, isn't it? So
it's incredibly deplorable.
And we haven't even got Cellino in Serie A at the moment. Imagine what we could say with him if he was in the Lega at the moment.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Right. Let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which we presented by Mr. William Beckman.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Yeah, this is slightly more slapstick than the Moggi, unfortunately, but it's Tottenham Hotspur this week's Frog. Tottenham Hotspur, who've sacked Jose Mourinho, as we recorded this on Monday. I've just checked the BBC Sport website, and Mourinho being sacked by Tottenham is only the fourth biggest story on the site as you go down. So that kind of tells you what kind of day it's been. But that's not what this is about. This is about dogs and paint. Spurs on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, I can't remember now. They announced a deal with Dulux as their official paint supplier, which is a kind of sponsor that you don't see very often in football. And they marked it obviously they got me on side because they marked this deal by basically getting a dog, which clearly had no idea what it was getting itself in for, and taking it on a tour around the stadium and letting it do a photo shoot, taking a picture of it on the touchline, at which point Spurs fans said, can we have the dog as manager instead, etc. and so on. But this announcement kind of was slightly ruined by the fact that Dulux's social media team were then forced to issue an apology a couple of hours later, because the guy who runs their Twitter account had spent the first sort of hour after the agreement was announced sort of criticizing Spurs and making fun of them with memes on their Twitter account. So you had Spurs fans tweeting them saying, asking, can you paint the trophy cabinet? And Dulax UK's Twitter account replied saying, don't be silly, surfaces should be dusted free before being painted. Someone said there was a joke about their defence as well. Someone was asked if the dog could play centre back, and Dulax replied, well, he could probably do a better job than Eric Dyer. So this kind of stuff was a little bit strange, and then they had to issue an apology which said these comments do not reflect how proud we are to be the official paint supplier of the club. We're deeply sorry for the post from Dulax this morning in response to the announcement of our relationship with Spurs. Now, there is a theory that this might be a marketing ploy and that this has all been set up. So obviously Spurs did a sort of a reply to it, and then a load of paint-related gags ensued. But they did delete the tweets. So I kind of feel like if it had been that, then they wouldn't have bothered going to those lengths. So anyway, Tottenham being embarrassed by a paint company is the frog of the. Although actually, as we were saying, that Gazzetta dello Sport story where they basically just published their own editor's WhatsApp chat and sort of pretended it was a scoop, that was also quite amusing. So take your pick.
Yeah, it was. Let's move on to something much more positive. This week's Moratti, which we presented by Mr. Positivity himself, Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of these qualities.
Honestly, we didn't synchronize together, but my Moratti of the week is Tottenham related as well. It's our own hero, Tripletta.
Jose.
I honestly cry inside every time this man gets disrespected in the world of football. I think there hasn't been no better manager. Maybe Conte today, will sort of reach the levels that Mourinho has, I hope. But no better manager in the last, I would say, 20 years. I take him over Guardiola any day. And to hear the leaks that it was in objection to Tottenham joining the ESL. Also, I mean, again, like we said, this is a very long labyrinthian case. We don't know where we stand on it, but the fact that he was actually ready to put his reputation on the line for his own moral position is very emblematic of the sort of person that he is. His Twitter, his Instagram account has been just story after story of all the top players, Harry Kane, Son, Lucas Moura, all thanking him and wishing him the best. So clearly it's not him losing the dressing room as it had been alleged. And, I think Mourinho had once said, his best achievement was finishing second with Manchester United. And time really has shown that this man knows what he's talking about. And for whatever reason, he's a masochist. He continues wanting to play in the Premier League, where the media, for whatever reason, seem to really have it in for him. So I just wanted to take this moment to thank our forever hero, Jose Mourinho, on a very tough day for him.
For sure. And Jose, give up the Premier League, come back to Italy after Conte. I'd do anything to have him at Inter. I don't care what anyone says, but I everything Mo said times 1,000. Like, I just love the man. I have nothing but respect for him, and I hope that his career can function and recover from this again. I just don't think the Premier League is the right league for him.
No, although we should say that the Super League story was a wind-up tweet. There's nothing into that, as far as I'm aware. That was
that wasn't true. That wasn't true. Yeah, that was entirely fake news. And the funny thing is, it would be nice if people actually looked at who they're retweeting. Look at the profile. Yes, I mean, look at the profile of that guy. It's so blatantly a parody account. Like, you have to be stupid if you take that seriously.
He also published a scoop a few hours earlier saying that Newcastle were going to be the 7th Premier League team to join the Super League. It takes a quick scroll to work out that he was probably sacked because of the results. But that doesn't change the greatness of the man and what he did at Inter, obviously. So.
For sure. Right, that's all we had time for. This was a long episode. And that's all we have time for this week. I'd like to thank David Ferrini for joining us. I'd like to thank you, Fulvio. It was a long time. Good to have you back. You really pick your episode.
Good. Yeah. Always good episode for me,
It's always a pleasure. It's always a controversial subject or something crazy. So next time we have Fulvio on, I don't know, we'll probably expect something really mad before. just in case. I'll let everyone know. Fulvio's coming on Monday, so expect some craziness over the weekend.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Always a pleasure. Mr. William Beckman.
Thank you. Does that mean if we book Fulvio for next week, we're guaranteed to have won the league by the next time we record?
Yeah.
Exactly. Can we try that?
Yeah, let's try that. Yeah. And Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure. Lots of fun. Great long episode. Thank you, Fulvio, for the in-depth stuff about the Serie A. Always a great listen.
It's hilarious.
That's my special.
It is, and I love that. I absolutely love that. I live for that stuff. Grande Fulvione. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. Until next week, I'm your host Nima Tavallaey, wishing you to stay healthy, 6 points, and sempre e solo forza Inter.